This is a production of Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
Here we go. Chalk Talk. It's brought to you by Craft Treats. Make your pet happier. They have you taken care of. They have the pet treats that'll take care of arthritis. My dog's moving around a little bit slow. I hate to admit it. Anxiety. We've got a fox outside here, Chris, that I don't know if you've ever been around a fox, but they scream literally like bloody murder. And so my dog is very anxious about the fox screaming outside. So what do? We give him a little bit of the Craft Treats CBD oil, and man, he is good to go. And you can click on the link provided for a 15% discount. They've also got the whole food treats. They've got everything that's just fantastic. It's good for your pet. It's going to help your pet, especially when it comes to anxiety and pain. You don't want that out of your pet. You want your pet to be happy. So go to Craft Treats and click on the link provided. You get 15% off. Chris, we were discussing SEC spring meetings last week, and I'm curious. It just feels like we're on the verge, not the verge, but there will be another expansion. I don't know if it's, heck, we didn't know going into SEC media days that it was going to happen when it did. So, but year 2, 3, whatever it is, it's eventually going to happen. Who do you think might be the targeted program?
Well, you mean, in just a clarification, you're talking about the SEC adding more teams. That's what you're referring to, as opposed to playoff expansion, which I think is definite. Dave, I don't see it. I don't have the answer because, see, I knew Oklahoma and Texas had wandering eyes for years. I think we all knew that. Now, we thought for a stretch there was going to go to the Pac-12, and then obviously we know they're coming into the SEC. Who's leaving? So I don't know. Like, for example, people would say things like, well, Clemson's a natural SEC type school. Well, but the buyout is so large out of the ACC now, I don't see that. Who are you going to expand to? I don't think there's anybody left that's worth going after if you're the SEC. Think about it. Would they accept Notre Dame's brand if they wanted to come? Yeah. Who else? You're not going to go after – I just don't see it. I'm not throwing people three things out. Well, go after NC State or Virginia Tech. Okay, maybe, but do you want to go to Virginia Tech to get the kind of the DC market, the Mid-Atlantic market? Maybe, but again, look at once the ACC was purged by a couple of schools, when they lost Maryland in particular, they upped their buyout to where that is. That's money that's going to be tough. So I don't really see that. And while Virginia Tech and Clemson does that really change things? I just don't know. I think we'd have to see some complete fallout because I just don't see anybody leaving. I don't see USC leaving the Pac-12. I don't see Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State leaving the Big Ten. And again, I think because of the buyout, I don't see those teams in the ACC. And who do you want? Okay, yeah, Florida State, Miami, Clemson. Again, the buyout, those are where I would go in terms of the schools. But I don't see that as being realistic. And where are you going to go? You want to get somebody out of the Big 12? Really? Kansas excites you? Iowa State, TCU, Baylor, nice programs, but not programs that are going to raise the profile of the SEC. I don't think there's the prime programs available to be perched if you're the big-time programs anymore, unless we have complete collapse and you start to merge some of those teams that I was talking about, in which the SEC would be on the top of the food chain. But I don't see it the way other people do, that it's going to be expanded anytime soon, unless there's a collapse, which who knows, it might be.
Yeah, so expanded, you're saying if it happens, expansion, you're not just talking about SEC expansion, you would be talking about there's a whole nother level of college football, which very well could happen of maybe top 32. Would that be good or bad for the sport?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I think so. Let's just say play what if and you think about this right now. The SEC is so strong with their TV contract. The next contract that's being up for grabs, the Big Ten, they thought they were going to have it by Memorial Day. Dave, they tell me that Big Ten contract coming up will blow people away. Amazon's interested, NBC's interested, Fox has it, but they want it more. So now that you've got these streaming partners involved, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. SEC got their big deal. The Big Ten's getting ready to get their big deal. ACC's making a boatload of money, but they'll be third on the food chain. And then, so I don't know where the breakup's going to be, but in a world of, it was only, let's say it was just Big Ten and SEC, so to speak, you could have almost like an AFC, NFC type where you got 30, instead of 16 and 16, you'd have 32 teams and 32 teams. Then you're talking about major restructuring, because as we're discussing now in the SEC, with Oklahoma and Texas coming in 2025, it looks like, or sooner, if it's sooner, but it's likely 2025. They're trying to figure out that we can't do divisions anymore because we can't play teams. We got Georgia and A&M that you can go 5 years to one of those schools and not play the other. So now we're trying to look at pods to where you play everybody in your pod and then you play everybody else within the conference within 2 years. The conferences are getting so big that you can't manage playing one another. That makes it difficult from a scheduling standpoint to get some integrity of who the best teams are. I think the trendy thing now, the Pac-12's looks like they're going to do it, is to go away with divisions, take the two best teams. So you get rid of East-West, and who's the two best teams in your league at the end of the year based upon you play a schedule, kind of like the old days when you had 10 teams, everybody played one another, and then you had the best team and they went. Now it would be like that, except you wouldn't play everybody, but you'd play a decent sample size and you take the two best teams based on criteria, regardless of, and then put them in the championship game, which could be a rematch like you see in the Big 12 right now. So I think this is going to be real interesting. The integrity of finding your two teams and divisions, that's getting tougher and tougher because there are too many teams.
Yeah, and this may have already happened, and it occurred to me while I was talking to you. Maybe the SEC programs, for the most part, the contenders, are already at such a level where it would be tough for another program to catch them. I mean, the pool is, there's not a lot of programs you would look out there and say facilities and support, they could jump in the SEC. I don't know.
That's
There's
right.
more than 5.
Look, there's a lot of talk about, okay, when is Oklahoma and Texas coming in? And they want to get in and all of that stuff. The powers that be at Oklahoma and Texas would like to get into the SEC as soon as possible, but the money, even those places, the money is too steep to buy out early in the Big 12. But you know what they're telling me? The football people are telling me at Oklahoma and Texas, quietly, they will not say this publicly. They said, we're not ready for the SEC. We need to 2025 to build up our recruiting infrastructure, begin to recruit that we're going to play in the SEC, and get our programs to where we can be competitive, because right now they think they may struggle. And when I say struggle, look, Oklahoma, they're not as good as Alabama. They're not as good as Georgia, but they could compete with Florida and Tennessee and A&M and LSU this year. But they're not, they're third, maybe fourth best in the SEC. Texas even further down. So I think they both think that they got a ways to go. And a program like Clemson, I think Clemson has been great. But even at their highest level, if they had to go through the SEC gauntlet, I mean, right now they've got a really easy path in the ACC.
Yeah.
I mean, right now they're the third best program in the SEC. right now if you put them in there. At best, maybe in a given year they'd be fourth or fifth. Last year would probably be more down to fifth, but Clemson is behind Alabama. They're behind Georgia, and maybe on a par with that third to fourth best team in the SEC. Whereas they are the absolute, so far and away, the king in the ACC that it's not even close. So it is going to be tough competitively to get in the SEC. Everybody wants to get in financially, but nobody wants. People tell me all the time, Arkansas fans, we'd be much better in the Big 12. Why don't we go to the Big 12? Are you kidding me? That's like saying they would lose so much money. They're in it for the money. Follow the money. The SEC is a print money machine, and that's why people want to be there. But competitively in football, very, very difficult.
Interesting, because the two teams always wanted to add to the SEC, especially when they added Missouri and Texas A&M. I like the regional aspect of it. I'm kind of old-timey guy. I thought Clemson and Florida State would be cool. You would have two in-state rivalries. I thought that would grow into something like the Iron Bowl over time. It already is. Both those rivalries to some extent are. But if they were in conference and it meant more, I thought that would be super cool. Now, me and a guy named Bobby Bowden.
No, I agree with you. And Bobby Bowden decided to go to the ACC.
Yeah.
The SEC came after him. But you know what happened? This would be interesting for the listeners to understand. There was a gentleman's agreement between South Carolina when they got in, Florida, Georgia, that if it ever came down to Florida State, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and then when A&M got in, Texas, that those schools would band together and block. So in other words, they would not vote to get those other teams in. Well, that didn't go too well when Texas came in. When they saw the Texas cha-ching money, that made a big difference. So a lot of the things that we talk about and the fans talk about, boy, Clemson and Florida State would be great. Be a natural. Yeah, they would be in that they're the Southern Missouri doesn't fit in the SEC any way, shape, or form at all. They really don't. But
It's so hard.
But it brings in the St. Louis market, TV market, and that's in the other schools. They already have South Carolina market, they already have the Georgia market, they already have the Florida market, and those schools kind of backed up one another and said, we'll vote against, you have our back, we'll have your back, we're going to vote against those. That they all had that, but then they all gave the finger to A&M and they said, we all voted Texas in because the money was too good. So that's why A&M was just so. They've got a saying in College Station. It's called BAS, Battered Aggie Syndrome. They think everybody's against them, and they pretty much kind of see that. Kind of right now, that's pretty much the case.
Yeah, they've got a lot of battered ball syndrome in this
I do.
neck of the woods as well. He's Chris Landry. Go to LandryFootball.com to learn more about football than you ever imagined you could. Also, save 15% off by clicking on the link provided, and your pet will be happier. It will be more comfortable. It won't have to worry about that arthritis. It won't have to worry about that anxiety when the storms roll in. That is Craft Treats. Check them out. The link is provided. Again, a 15% discount if you use that link, Craft Treats. So in the end, just in closing, I think we can all agree, Chris, that Nick Saban comes away looking like the guy who won that verbal tussle. Is that pretty safe to say?
Well, I think most people nationally look at A&M and Jimbo Fisher and say, okay, you had a show cause penalty at A&M. You had problems at Florida State off the field and NCAA wise. Nick Saban doesn't have that. We all can speculate that no one's clean in college football coaching. I've been a recruiting coordinator in this league. I can vouch for that. But you have nothing like that with Nick Saban. And Nick Saban is look all the titles he's won. And so I think they're saying, really, Jimbo, you're going after that guy. But then there's some people that say, well, Nick was out of line and Jimbo responded inappropriately. I thought Jimbo had a chance to come looking real good if he had handled it well. He did anything but in my mind. And I think the way he handled this, the only people that are backing him are the Aggies, of course. But everybody else looks at him as kind of an unhinged guy that is a little bit out of control. And now, under a lot of pressure, can you imagine what's going to happen this year on the field? Because I think A&M's got a much better team. And I'm not talking about just October 8th. But let A&M lose 2 or 3 games, and what are you going to hear? Boy, they can buy players, but they can't win on the field. And then if they win, well, sure they can win. They bought players. They're in a tough spot, and I think that Jimbo put a target on his back that's bigger and bigger. I mean, he had a target. Okay, he's making a lot of money. Now it's one of those glow-in-the-dark highlighted targets that everybody can't miss. Near, far, dark night. I think that people are going to refer back to that soundbite over and over and over again. And I think it's going to be one on the field. And I think Nick Saban has the better team at Alabama. I think in the end, he's going to look, if not better now, look better by the end of the fall.
Yep. He is Chris Landry at LandryFootball.com. I'm Dave Hooker off thehooksports.com. It's up and running live with videos, all kinds of good stuff, current player interviews. We've also got interviews with guys like Paul Feinbaum insiders, and Chris Landry is the ultimate insider. So have a fantastic day. You have got to click on that link to make your pet happy. Craft treats, anxiety, and all that stuff and all that arthritis are no more with Craft Treats. Chris, I'm Dave. Have a fantastic